Today we're gonna explore maps. Like I said, now I first want to do something that have triggered my instinct to look at maps, and this is a book called Maps That Made History by Professor Les Smart. What he says is, we need maps. We have always need maps. The marks found in caves of our ancestors have been interpreted as maps. And every society that existed throughout history in every corner of the globe has created its own map. They form one of the ways by which each society has sought to represent, record, and communicate its world. The ability to read a map is part of a skill known as visual literacy, and it involves being able to make sense of the symbols, image, colors, either alongside or in absence of words. This literacy was present in the early years of humans and has continued through ancient civilization and into modern times. As such, each map can provide us with an insight into a particular period in history, the people who lived there, and what was significant to them. But like all other artifacts that have survived from earlier periods, maps do not speak for themselves. They need to be explored and interpreted. Very few has adopted the approach taken here and explore individual maps as a means of looking into the history of the period in which they were created. In effect, to use them as a window into times now past. The attempt to do this has informed the way they are present. All the maps have been reproduced as large as possible to enable the details to be seen easily, because it often have details that is crucial to our story or our history. The Royal Geographical Society in London is opening its archives, and that's where Dr. Les Smart got his maps from, and is now about in the books he have written now according to the maps that he have sourced from there. And in this, it includes some 2 million maps. Many of those existence was not previously known. The maps we now use will be scrutinized by the future generation as they seek to deepen their understanding of our 21st century world. Now, this is a very, very, very smart book. In the way how I've obtained this book, I bought it. Normally where I buy my books, I support a disability village there. When they've got like music CDs, I buy, and when they've got like a library, I go in there. Then I buy. When I'm in there, then I buy history books. Maybe 100 rand, I'll get 10 books. Sometimes I'll get 15 books. And this book was lying on the table in the kitchen of the people that's cooking for this disability people. And days have gone by when I see this book was just laying on the table, and I look through it every time just so quickly. And then I took this book and I asked, whose book is this? And the lady said this was, and I say, I'm interested in this book, can I buy it from you? And she says, no. To see that I always see you buying books, you can have this one for free. And I didn't know, because I thought I'm just going to see a South African map, because I was only interested in the South African maps of Southern African map. But what it says in here, in his first page, workmen used a wattle ladder to build a Tower of Babel that would reach from earth to heaven. It's located in the Bible. And when we see these people, I'm going to scan it and I'm also going to put in, these people that's building this Babel is of a dark complexion. Is of a dark complexion. What he further states here, he says, in the introduction, it was noted that no map ever shows everything, and that what is included and what is omitted. A map is part of the story itself. So the word omitted means something was left out, so that me and you and people during that time with these maps, it's omitted so that you and me can see the true reality from where we're coming from. Although the map maker's decisions making would be determined by the map's purpose, he is also part of the society he sought to represent in his work and cannot but reflected this. The Psalter map, that's now your Psalms, on the other hand, is not intended to help anyone to get anywhere except perhaps to go to heaven. That's why I've written the Bible. The Bible, it gives there the Nile. And here in history, it also get the Nile. It's talking about Egypt. Yes, Egypt. It's talking about Solomon. We talk about Israel. So the map, the history in our Bible is one and the same thing.
We're going over the preliminaries, but first we're going to take a look at our preliminary verse of Brashith or Genesis chapter 2, verses 10 through 14, so we can get some context on the four rivers and where they are located. And then we're going to be taking a look at ancient maps and documents and sources to really see if we can document the real true location of Eden. But here we are in Brashith or Genesis chapter 2, verses 10 through 14, that reads, "And a river went out of Adon or Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided and became four river heads." So this first part is important because it tells us that it first started as a river, but then it divides into four parts. And do we see that somewhere? Well, let's keep going, because then it goes on to say, and we're going to be using the names in the ancient Yahudiath language, but the name of the first is Payashun, or commonly known as Pishon today. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Kuyala, commonly known as Havilah today, where there is gold. Keep this in mind, gold. Now that we have some context on what we just read, now we're going to go over and see exactly where these four rivers could be today and also where they once connected. Because as we've gone over in the documentary, we've discussed this map that's well over 600 years old, and we're going to discuss it once again today in this documentary for context purposes, because it says in 1411, a Venetian cartographer by the name of Albertinus de Verga designed this very important map of Africa. Now again, this map is well over 600 years old. It comes from 1411, and we've gone over it in the documentary, but once again, we're focusing on it today because this map is key in helping us find the four rivers of Eden today. But as you can see, here is a sketched outline of it, and if you would like to learn more about it, I will link it in the description box below where you can learn more info about it. Here is the map in color just so that you have an idea. Now, for those of you who already do not know, or if this is your first time seeing this topic, well, you may be wondering why this map is so important. Look again. Because what you will see depicted on this map is the Garden of Eden at the southernmost tip of Africa with the symbol of 2 concentric rings from which emerge the 4 rivers that are mentioned in Brashith or Genesis chapter 2, what we just read a little bit earlier ago. So here is that actual depiction right here with the concentric rings, and here are the 4 rivers that emerge out of it right here all throughout the land of Africa as it's commonly known today. Now, there are a few other things to note about this map and why it's so very important. The first thing to note is how one of the 4 rivers appears to be the Nile, and that is right here. As you can see right here, it goes all the way from so-called southern Africa all the way towards Egypt as it's commonly known today. So what? It looks just like the Nile, and we're going to be talking more about that later on when we go over the Tigris River. Now, the most important thing that I want you to know today in this video is that all of these rivers in Africa are connected. They are all connected to one another, and we're going to be talking about that more when we take a look at ancient maps that show and depict the Niger River and the Nile River as well. Now, what's commonly taught to us in geography classes and in our history classes that, oh, the Nile River goes all the way from here in what's commonly known as Egypt today all the way towards Uganda, and that it stops there. But is that really true? Because what you're about to see in the video later on is that really there is even a so-called Nile River in so-called South Africa as well, because what? They're all interconnected, and that's a very important concept for this video.
But what we've got in history, which we can say it's a scripture, which they've turned into a Bible and have altered the names. And now it looks like they were the original of the Bible. You remember in my first video, I say the missionaries didn't come here to teach us about the Word of God or the Bible. They came here to destroy the original language of the inhabitants.
They begin to question what you thought you knew. Now I got another question for you. Didn't these so-called Jews reject the Messiah? So as a whole, the Jews do not accept Yahshua, the one that the world called Jesus, as the Messiah. And according to the scriptures, the curses of Deuteronomy 28 should be evident in their lives. But instead, they are the richest, most powerful people on the face of the earth. I leave you with this scripture. I know thy works, tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them that say that they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Who call themselves Jews? Who worship in the synagogue? I rest my case.
Now, why I say so, if you look at any ancient map, which I've just explained to you now, even if you look at the word Monotopa, Manika, it's all foreign names. Where is the original that our people, as you can see, they were smart people, they built Bible, they had scriptures. They had original maps. So when the Romans came here, they didn't just came here for the gold and the minerals and what you call it, precious stones. The word they use in the Bible is precious stones, which is the diamonds. They didn't come for. They came for the scriptures.
This is Africa. From this perspective, it looks massive, doesn't it? But how massive is it really? Or should I say, how massive do we believe it is?
Status check. Command on internal. Affirmative. Telemetry in launch condition. Affirmative. Missile and internal DC. Affirmative. Pressurization complete. Affirmative.
Now in many African civilizations, and some part of the West, the common notion that Africa is the second largest continent in the world is established in all levels of education. Yet very little information was shared based on the map and size of the African continent. Our African ancestry passed down what we know about Africa to subsequent generations, but historically the map of Africa, although having been drawn several times and in several models, had never been drafted by an African. Some people believe the continent of Africa was wrongly credited, and rather has a larger stature than what was previously established as facts. Recent scientific studies suggest that Africa is indeed larger than is shown on maps. So,
And the maps. If they can destroy that, they can tell you any story they want to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happened, how they've done it. This was smart people, how to eliminate a nation. They were cruel. Now, if you look at the Holocaust got, even today, it gets the attention. One sample I want to give you is, there's a guy, he was from the Iron Guard, of the Nazi Iron Guard. His name was Valerian Triefer. He was also one of those Iron Guards that killed the Jews. So during how they want to escape, as the people starts to migrate, this Valerian Triefer is in with the people, mixed with the people, going through the borders of America, and they got citizenship on the other side. So he fly to the migration. There is also of this tribe, people of the Romanian tribe, and he went over and he got American citizenship. And there, with his progress, he became a bishop. So it's Bishop Valerian Triefer. After they've killed thousands and thousands or millions of people, he became a pastor. Then he's now with a priest, and he's now with the Bible.
The virulent anti-Semite, Valerian Triefer. Valerian Triefer was a member of the Iron Guard, a Romanian fascist organization that helped incite the Legionnaires' Rebellion in 1941. Triefer, a virulent anti-Semite, organized violent anti-Semitic riots in Bucharest, killing hundreds of Jews. He was a privileged Nazi prisoner for the majority of the war, and after the war, he emigrated to the United States. In his opposition to the Orthodox Church in Communist Romania, he rose to prominence as the leader of the Romanian American Orthodox community. Triefer's crimes prior to the war were unknown until 1975, when the U.S. Department of Justice launched an investigation into him. Before being allowed to move to Portugal, he was stripped of his American citizenship. Due to Triefer's connections to fascism, Portugal declared him undesirable in 1984. He was asked to leave by the government, which gave him 3 months to do so. For several years, he fought deportation in court. Triefer died of a heart attack at the age of 72, while the procedure was still going on.
Man of God. But someone in that church few centuries later say, I know this man. I recognize this man as Valerian Triefer of the Iron Guard. I was a little boy and he have killed my parents and I escaped. And I remember that face and that voice. And he went to the officials or the FBI. He says, that is Valerian Triefer of the Iron Guard that has killed me. But they didn't want to take note of him. But he was persistent until they've listened to him. Now, they don't have evidence that this is the man. What they have done is, now people just listen to me nicely. This is what they have done is, they went to Germany, to Berlin, And they went to the archives, and our history is also there in that archives. But now, because it's a West in the West or a European in a European, they will help each other out to prosecute that guy. When they went into the archives, they want to confirm, is this Valerian Trieffer? What they were looking for, they were searching. But what is the agony about this thing is, when the Americans and the other officials of Germany went into the archives, heavily armed Germans escort them there. What they're looking for, and they overlook whatever they take. And in the archives, they found a postcard that Valerian Trieffer have written those days in the World War II. And they retrieved this postcard. But this postcard wasn't left alone. It was escorted from Germany to America, because America had the technology. So they were scanning that thing so that they can have something there, and they scanned the fingerprint. And when they look at Valerian Trieffer handwriting compared to that on the postcard, it matches. And the fingerprint that was on there, luckily one fingerprint, it matches Valerian Trieffer. And he was arguing his point that he wasn't part of the Iron Guard. But to escape prosecution, I don't know where did he run to some other Romanian country also. But before he can be prosecuted, he got a heart attack and he died. And some other lady that was also part of such. And so they trace all these people. If they heard of somebody who was present, they trace him and they prosecute him for his crimes. Né? But now, we have genocide in Ghana, we have genocide in Nigeria, we have genocide in Ethiopia, we have genocide in South Africa, we have genocide in Namibia.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed. The bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us use that power. Let us all unite.
I'm alright. Oh, my love, and hold my hand through this iron sky that's fast becoming all mine. Over freedom, into freedom, into freedom, from which we'll rise. Oh, my love, and overhead, through this iron sky that's fast becoming all mine.
We have slave, also the slave trade. It's silence. Yeah. Because we are Africans. And I've even asked, like I've talked to you now, I've written emails, I've dropped off documents to our president and the presidency to say, Cyril, why are we the only country in South Africa? We're quiet, we're silent. We've never called our colonized masters to hold accountable. And you must remember, South Africa went through the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the British, and the Afrikaners. Is it because you've eaten the forbidden fruits? The forbidden fruits, what I mean is, you've been corrupted. So I'm going to leave it on there. We'll go there because this one is quite very interesting for what we get. So I'm just giving you the brief there. Né? Now, Psalter is a book containing Psalms. And in this tiny map, barely 6 inches, which is 15 centimeters in height, which is in this book of Dr. Smart. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to enlarge them for you so that you can see it on the screen, and you can maybe also Google if you can find a copy of this book. And 4 inches and 10 centimeters wide was created in England to illustrate such book sometime between 1215 and 1250. It was never intended to be used for traveling purpose. Even so, it does provide a wonderful insight into the way the geographic of the world appear when seen through the lens of Christianity. Is the same one that I've talked about, Afrikaners, the same map here that's now been blown up for us. And I'm going to put it in and you're going to hear what he says. This map is orientated with the east at the top. Make it easier. The east on the top. Let me just put it nicely. Let me see it there. Yeah. With the east on the top. And somewhere it shows the Garden of Eden appears in a prominent position just below the figure of Christ. Wonderful, ne? That's what we want to hear. This is the one. There's Jesus Christ. And there's the Garden of Eden. So he's talking about this one here. I'm going to also include this into your into a bigger picture for you. So we have never seen this book. Like I say, it's not for you to travel. But like I say, the Bible, in the Bible, it's got valuable information we have missed. Né? With a prominent position just below the figure of Christ and with the sun directly in between. There's a Garden of Eden, there's the sun, and there's Jesus Christ. Right. Somewhat persuasive faces of Adam and Eve and the tree of temptation can also be clearly seen in the garden is enclosed. Right. By the mountains, 5 rivers flows out of the paradise, and familiar names of Ganges, Tigris, and Euphrates can be easily readable. When you blow it up like this, we can see all the names on here. While the latter two reasonably accurate in location. So your Tigris and your Euphrates is in the right position, but Ganges is not in its right position here. The detail on the map actually becomes more familiar to the modern eyes if is rotated by a 90-degree clockwise. So that means they've tampered with the original map. London or Britain have tampered with the original map. Now if you turn it clockwise, the places here starts to change. That's what he says. And it becomes more accurate. Now you have the Nile also there on top. It's then possible to recognize the fan blue. The fan blue zigzag representing the Nile River. as it enters the Mediterranean Sea. Now, I've got another map here, which is from the Atlas. And what is that? It have a, it's like it's air zoom. So there's the Nile coming out, the blue Nile and the white Nile. Now, what I say is, as soon as you remove all of these names, because like I say, the Nile is there, it has always been there, and we know England was a latecomer. So what I do is, if you look at the Nile River on the Atlas from an aerial view, take out Victoria Lake, take out any lake, Tanganyika, take out Zambezi, take out Limpopo River, take out the Vaal River, then you'll see the Nile continues from up there, right through into southern Africa.
With the symbol of two concentric rings from which emerge the four rivers that are mentioned in Brashith or Genesis chapter 2, what we just read a little bit earlier ago. So here is that actual depiction right here with the concentric rings, and here are the four rivers that emerge out of it right here all throughout the land of Africa as it's commonly known today. Now, there are a few other things to note about this map and why it's so very important. The first thing to note is how one of the four rivers appears to be the Nile, and that is right here. As you can see right here, it goes all the way from so-called southern Africa all the way towards Egypt as it's commonly known today. So what? It looks just like the Nile, and we're going to be talking more about that later on when we go over the Tigris River. Now, the most important thing that I want you to know today in this video is that all of these rivers in Africa are connected. They are all connected to one another, and we're going to be talking about that more when we take a look at ancient maps that show and depict the Niger River and the Nile River as well. Now, what's commonly taught to us in geography classes and in our history classes that, oh, the Nile River goes all the way from here in what's commonly known as Egypt today all the way towards Uganda, and that it stops there. But is that really true? Because what you're about to see in the video later on is that really there is even a so-called Nile River in so-called South Africa as well, because what? They're all interconnected, and that's a very important concept for this video. Here is the full map right here that shows calendar plates. Now, once again, if you would like to take a look at this more on your own time, you can take a look at the documentary, and again, the link is in the description box below so that you can learn more. But another very important detail about this map is that it disappeared in the late 1930s from Heidelberg, Germany, along with its owners. And who were the owners of this map? And that's right, the owners were a Jewish family, coincidentally enough, 10 years before their fraudulent nation was formed. Now again, the question...
Why I say that? Now, I'm gonna do a little exercise. You remember, I had the Bibles. Then I say, the Bible is written in English, B-I-B-L-E. So we have to look at the prefix, the I. I'm worried about the I. It's Bible. So everything in here, in the Bible, is written in English. What's written in English, if it's translated to Afrikaans, everything in here must be in Afrikaans. If you look at the prefix Bible, your Y, your I have now becomes a Y, the prefix. Now we're taking the name Nile. Nile is basically the same. It's N-I-L-E. Now the prefix of the I in the Nile, when you come to Afrikaans, it's Nijlrivier. So now you can't tell me in English it's Nile River, because you're wrong. It's Nijlrivier. When you translate it back, it becomes Nile River. In Nijlstroom, that's the Nile River. So we continue till in Mpumalanga. They have altered and they have made us confused with the names. So the Nile River is going right through. So what I'm trying to say also is maybe or accurately to our findings. And I'm also going to put another video on our findings. It's so powerful. You can't deny this facts. The Garden of Eden is in Southern Africa.
Known today. Remember how we've gone over the Canaland local municipality in so-called South Africa, Southern Africa, which is where the Garden of Eden is depicted. Notice how it's located within the Garden Route district. And when you actually take a look at the Garden Route, you will see that that's what? The Eden district. You see this right here, the seal. That's what? The Al or the Aleph in the Ya'udiyah Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, which is the first letter of the alphabet. Where is all of this located today? And according to the Human Sciences Research Council from the Dictionary of Southern African Place Names that was published in the late 1980s, if you go to page 107, this is what you will find. The definition of Canaland right here also encountered as Canaland, or what? Canaan's land, the real land of Canaan. They're even telling you where it is. They're putting it right in front of your face that the real land of Canaan is located in Southern Africa. Remember, we just told you to take a look at the Garden Route district as we saw earlier near the Eden district, because that is what it was once called, formerly known as the Eden District Municipality, where in so-called South Africa, the same place that shows us that map where in 1411 of the Garden of Eden being depicted within the same region, Eden right there, Garden Route, Canaland, the land of Canaan. Now,
Which could be your Garden Route in Cape Town. Everything is here. There's animals, there's plants, there's fruits. We've got everything. We've got abundance of water. So when the Nile was at its fullest, it goes through what you call now Limpopo. The zigzag that it does. I'm going to show you, I'm going to also add another picture on here that shows how ancient people have documented it in the caves. The zigzag in the boat. Could it be the Ark of Noah? Or could it, because I believe they know how to go through the Nile. And another point that will make me strong. There's a document that says in the Kruger National Park, you'll find the Nile crocodile. From up there, right through, they used to swim up and down or down up when they breed as they come in. So the Nile crocodile is in South Africa. The Nile crocodile is up there in Egypt, which is the same people. You'll find it in Limpopo, which they call now Mogala Kwena River. Mogala Kwena River. So Kwena means crocodile. Now, this Mogala, who is that person? Mogala is Mogale. Mogale, the king of the chief of Bapu, it's him. And in there, if you read, just do a research on Mogale, ni Mogale. Is in the Ndebele say la. When he comes in a Tswana country, he says le. Mogale, Mogala. He was the one that escorted or followed the Boers from there to Magaliesburg and kill all the people, and they give him that name, and they name that mountain there, Mogale. Magaliesburg, Mogale city. It's the same. He's in the belly. Read it there for yourself. Go do the research, and you'll see them in the belly. And as they go to Makapanstad, Makapans were the his chief or his grand. He's from that in the belly tribe. So then the belly, Makapan is in the belly. Mogale is in the belly. Royal Bafokeng Mothlegi is in the belly. They came into Tswana country and then they say le, where they say la. And we are not ba, we are ra. The Tswana is ra, not ba. They are ba. When they come into a group, they say ba yete. So from there, let me just go quickly do the next one. Let's go continue here. We finish with that one. So let's see. We nearly finished there. Sorry for rerouting there. We have now say about the map. When we look to the south of the Nile and legend rather than fact information, the feature presents the lack of knowledge of this region. It led to the belief that the people who live here were different in form. The people who live there were different in form or pigment skin. So it's not those Egypts that you find now. Now, why I want to tell you this, there's the rivers of Jor and the river of Dan can be seen flowing into the sea. That's now there by this one of less smart, ne? This one. Now, he says two rivers, Jor and Dan, not as it is in the Bible in that we spoke it of Jordan as one.